And we're live. It literally says in the YouTube thing, waiting for Scott Shapiro to reconnect. That's kind of amazing. It is Friday, July 15th. There are 6 more weeks of summer. We are not allowed to have fun anymore. We are certainly not allowed to have fun because there's a new wave of COVID. I feel like we haven't even mentioned COVID on the show, which is the whole reason for the show's existence.
Right.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson is out of government.
Boris Johnson.
But
So much has happened.
yeah.
Scott has reconnected. Did you do that on purpose, Scott?
Hi. No, of course not.
Yes, you
just
did. You
I don't.
Ev,
Okay, now you're gonna make me feel guilty about
Yeah,
my internet connectivity.
Ev has an announcement that should not make Scott feel any guilt whatsoever.
yes, no guilt. Go ahead, Ev.
So yeah.
And if you want to make references along the way to how nobody named Scott should feel guilty if they can't attend, you should feel free to do that.
So yeah, I'm just here to tell about some more details about the cheese night that's going to happen next week on Monday. So it will be in Brooklyn. So sorry for all of those who think that it's far away. I understand. I'm sorry about that. If you have any other suggestions, then just DM me or discuss about it in the chat. It's in Caro Club. I put the address in the chat. It's at the top of the chat if you want to look at it. And I also put the link to subscribe to be there. For the moment, we're 12 people. But there will be plenty of rooms if any other people want to come. I reserved a pétanque place, which will be outside, so it's better COVID-wise. And it's going to be quite easy to record I Love there. So.
And if anybody, is there a good internet connection there?
I'm yet to ask. I was planning to do that.
Okay.
Otherwise,
so
when has that ever stopped us, Ben?
No. I'm just saying this for reasons related to ILOF
yes.
production. If in case there is not, if people could bring whatever Wi-Fi hotspots they have in their casual possession, that would be great, because we're going to need internet connectivity one way or the other. So since there will be a number of people there, and I will be bringing the cool-ass camera, the Mevo camera, which is a good friend of one Kate Klonick. You guys should bring Wi-Fi hotspots. So we're not going to get 12 Wi-Fi hotspots with 12 people, but if we could get 2 Wi-Fi hotspots, that would be fabulous. So bring your Wi-Fi hotspots. The address is at the top of the chat. Thanks to Ev, who is joining us from a mall somewhere.
Is that a Sephora behind you?
Yeah,
but
nailed it.
So aren't they like violating the Quebec sign law for not writing Sephora in French?
No, but if you want to see something, behind me you have Bath and Body Works. So it would normally be prohibited because it's in English. So that's the reason why there is fragrance at the end of it. So this way you have one French word and you're fine. But
wait,
so
I don't understand. Bath and Body Works gets away with it. Why?
They just added fragrance, which is a French word. It's scent.
Fragrance?
Yes.
That's weird.
That's a good workaround.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all do that.
Have fun at the mall.
Thanks, ciao.
Bye. I feel very excited about Cheese Night on Monday. I have.
And we're not inducing any guilt in Scott, who can't attend. We understand that people sometimes can't attend. We're not angry, just a little bit disappointed that they didn't make, better plans. But we understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
better plans in that we absolutely forgot to tell Scott we were
That's
tonight.
right. I would, I happily accept all blame, except in this one case, because I didn't, in fact, know about this until it was announced on Twitter or something. So,
The hashtag we're all going to use for all tweets, irrespective of their relevance to this issue, is hashtag it's Scott's fault.
Ben, we have a separate chat besides the In Lieu of Fun chat with the host that is Ev and like Mateo and Paula and Ben and I called it the kids table. I labeled it the kids table, and like, you are not invited, Scott. You are much too dignified to sit at this kids table. Ben and I, though, I will sit at the kids table probably until I'm like 80. So like,
this is all fine. This is all good. I do. I would have loved to be there because
we'll do it again.
last in person cheese night was like one of the funnest times.
Tom McGuckin, we are not discouraging anybody to fly to New York for in-person cheese night. At least one person, that is Ev, is doing it. We're certainly not guilting anybody who won't be in New York that evening. But if the New Mexico contingent, if you want to increase it by an exponential factor, you can get on a plane.
We have a little bit of agenda setting. If we're done discussing in-person cheese night, we have a little bit of agenda setting to do. Mainly that Elon Musk this is actually kind of it's worked its way into kind of an amazingly boring but fascinating kind of
boring but fascinating.
Yeah, I know that it really kind of depends on like how hard you squint at it, like whether or not you find it boring or fascinating. Like I kind of like think that it's super interesting, like moment for contracts and corporations, but then that phrase itself sounds super boring. So like I don't like a really fascinating moment for contracts sounds like a really comfortable root canal or something. So but Kate Conger is coming to discuss this. She and I had a call the other day, and I was trying to explain the finer points of specific performance to her, which I am not in any way an expert in. I just happen to be an attorney or play one on In Lieu of Fun. And she will be here shortly, but apparently Elon Musk lawyers just filed their answer in the Chancery Court to the most recent stuff that's been going on. And so
that's excellent.
Yeah, so she's gonna have looked at it and be like, have just started talking to us. I don't know. Scott Shapiro's like internet is crummy. That's a bummer.
Yeah, and we're not gonna make him feel guilty about that. It's I'm sure it's super it's the kind of thing that could happen to anybody. It's nobody has personal responsibility for their connectivity. We've all been there. So like that's fine. Hashtag it's Scott's fault.
I think we have to go to cheese night in Delaware because
we do. We are.
Reverend Hillary Livingston's there. There's a beach there, I hear.
While we are waiting for Kate Conger to discuss Elon Musk, Scott, I announced our joint project the other day. Now Scott's like making fish faces. When we were talking about with David Priest about this, the new Lawfare website, I mentioned that you were going to be doing a set of, in lieu of fun, inspired lectures on the lawfare, on the new lawfare site. We've got some echo all of a sudden.
Yeah, but yeah, how'd that happen?
I don't know. Oh, it just
Not,
went
not,
away.
yeah,
It's
Kate just
coming from
muted.
Kate. Yeah, it's Kate, hashtag it's Kate's fault.
Yeah, there's some people who are never caters, but I'm
No,
not one of them.
Get it?
I'm an always Cater.
Yeah.
I'm a make America Kate again. Maca.
Wow!
Oh
How have
my
I never thought
God.
of that?
Oh my
Holy
God. Make
shit!
America Kate again.
Why did
It's
we
like
do
a,
Kate Week with that theme? What were we thinking?
Oh my God. Maybe we can do an in-person riot or something. For Maca. Yeah.
I hear no
Wow.
one's going to be at the Capitol for a couple of months, so it's.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just want nobody ever gets to use that phrase without crediting me. I'm I'm for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life, I'm just going to police the use of that phrase aggressively and sort of sit on Twitter and just tweet at people, "Hey, did you make that up yourself?"
No, I'm gonna tweet it out without attribution right now, Ben. So.
No.
Okay, but seriously, Jacob was asking at the beginning of the show whether or not we were going to be discussing all things Elon Musk, like everything that's been insane about. I mean, which is like I would feel that we could have a whole Elon Musk week, which I would rather not do. But wait, where was that? Why did I just hear my own voice? Ben, I think
Yeah.
something weird is going on. Anyway, muting Ben for a second. Anyways, I think that we'll just discuss. Why is that? Why am I hearing my voice again?
We don't hear your voice again.
Oh, okay,
we did
Sorry.
earlier.
Hashtag it's not Ben's fault.
Okay. Can I ask a preliminary question? Like before Kate comes on and gives us information. Was there anybody in the known universe? Did anyone believe that he was going to go through with this?
Well, he did put up $1 billion of
What's it financing? I thought it might actually happen.
Of security.
I mean, the thing is that what's $1 billion when you have $200 billion? That's
right, but I mean, $1 billion fine or $1 billion earnest money that you lose is a heck of a cost for shit posting.
Well, I mean, you don't have it in your blood, Ben. People like, we're not in control of it. I'd spend $1 billion if I had 200 billion, I would spend.
You'd spend $1 billion for a really good shit post.
Yeah, a really good bit. A really good bit is priceless. I mean, so that's one thing.
He stole my bit,
Yeah,
and he didn't pay me $1 billion. Like, we could actually talk on the basis of him giving me $1 billion and he gets the "I'll fight Putin" bit, but that there's a basis for conversation there. But he just stole it.
I really think that you were like so low on the list of people aggrieved by Elon Musk, Ben. It's just.
Yeah, but I'm really high on my list of people aggrieved by Elon Musk.
So he's very high on your list, right? You're very low on his list. Yeah, but let's say, like with the financing, people were saying that he would have to come up with more revenue than Twitter normally produces in order just to pay the debt, and that's when things are going well. So it all just seemed, it never seemed like it made any sense.
I mean, it just was that when he got, I mean, no, it never made sense, but that has never held back mergers and acquisitions as far as I can tell. And like, I mean, to be totally fair.
Point. Yeah.
And I know it made no sense. It not only did it not make sense, like there's a really interesting kind of question for the board about like fiduciary obligations. Okay, again, maybe I just think this is interesting, but like there are some very straightforward law about like someone makes an offer at a certain type of stock value, you are obligated to accept it. And they tried the poison pill thing, and he came back with more, and like okay, like now and then. They built this, they made the contract, he signed it. The contract says, I'm going to just, if I walk away from this, specific performance or $1 billion. And then he got the financing in place. It actually seemed like this makes no sense for anyone involved. And it will be terrible also long term for Twitter as a company and a platform. But there just was not I don't know. I thought that it might actually happen. I didn't think it made sense. But I thought it might happen. Yeah. Ben, you're muted. Okay, you have to refresh. But yeah, so sorry, what were you gonna say, Scott?
No, I mean, you could say that about the Iraq War, right? It didn't make any sense, but it happened. So
right,
right, but still, like after, still like you still gotta make the numbers work out somehow in order to get the deal. And especially when the stock price fell from like in the 50s to the 30s, that and Tesla stock fell. What was it to close to 600, which was so it just. Yeah.
But I have a very serious question for you both. And you're going to think I'm joking, but I'm not. I'm really serious. Is it time for us to all switch to Truth Social or to Getter or to Gab? Because clearly Twitter's in bad shape now, and we need a different.
We're about to get a $1 billion injection of capital or be taken over by a sociopath. So like that is literally like, I mean, it's a solid dice roll what the Chancery Court's going to do. People hate specific, like contracts are terrible.
No, but come on, it's bad. It's a bad situation for Twitter that either they're gonna have this thing fall through and take the reputational damage hit, or they're going to get taken over by a sociopath. And there was a whole New York Times thing about how bad it was for them. And so I'm thinking maybe it's time to move over to Truth Social, which is a stable platform run by responsible people. A former president of the United States and a former chair of the Intelligence Committee. And so these are clearly responsible individuals, and they're committed to truth. It's right there in their name, which Twitter is not.
Social, which sounds fun.
Yeah, so I'm thinking Truth Social, but maybe it's Gab or maybe it's Getter, because that was really like responsible people named that. It doesn't have any grab 'em by the pussy vibes to it, to Getter. No, I mean, like clearly there was these are organizations run by responsible people. It's not frivolous like a little bird flapping, and so I'm just thinking maybe, like, I don't want to be precipitous about it, but maybe it's time.
Can I ask either of you? Do either of you have accounts on any of those things? Just to lurk? You do, Kate.
Oh, you have a lurker account on which one?
I'm not going to tell you.
Because I know George Conway has an account in his own name on Truth Social.
Oh,
and
really?
has keeps waiting to get thrown off of it.
I mean, that's kind of great. I have one on Parlor, I have one on Gab, and I have one on Getter.
I say
I
I would
mean,
be
this is like,
embarrassed to have one on Getter because it's like they may as well have called it, grab 'em by the pussy.com,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
like. It just feels like that would be embarrassing because
Um,
somebody would find out that I had one.
so okay, so can we I want to so one of the things, I know everything you said is true about it being bad for Twitter, Ben, but like, and I think that, Scott, I get your point that like it doesn't make any sense, but like my point being like, well, a lot of things don't make sense and they happen anyway. But like, what I will say is that I actually wonder if what is going to happen long term is that there isn't some type of um the cost of like, there isn't some like, is $1 billion like basically going, are they going to force the $1 billion, or are they going to settle for something less and still getting it? I mean, that would seem to me that something that the board would have to accept, but I don't know. I don't know where that would fall in terms of the fiduciary obligations of the board. Like, what is in the best interest of the company right now, like in this entire scheme? Is it only a short-term monetary like decision, or is it a slightly longer term monetary decision? Kate is here, but
But
that's
I,
kind of what I'm wondering.
but I don't even know how to think about that question because it is clearly in the best financial interests of the company to be acquired by somebody whose resources are infinite, and who doesn't care if the company has revenue. But that person is also promising to do no content moderation. And so it's a little bit to me like asking, is it in the best interest of a local grocery store to be acquired by a, you know, a gazillionaire who promises to eat all the furniture in the grocery store?
This is a great metaphor, Ben.
Right. I mean, it's like there's no what is it raises the question of what does it mean to be Twitter, right? Is it better to be financially taken care of but not be Twitter anymore, but to be
Yes,
Truth Social, or is it better to be Twitter but be continue to be a frankly bad business?
Kate Conger, welcome to the
Positioned
show.
Hello.
actually to address some of these
I
questions.
know. I'm curious because we were talking about. I was like, you should talk to a corporations lawyer. I don't have a good answer for this, but I wonder if, in the meantime, since we last chatted, you had gotten an answer on any of this stuff. And welcome, hi, hello,
Hi,
thanks for
hi.
joining us.
Sorry for running a little bit behind there. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think that what any corporate lawyer would say and has said about this is that what Twitter has to do, obviously, is just what is in the interest of the shareholders. And I talked about this earlier this week, but if like you're selling a lamp on Facebook Marketplace and someone offers you $50 and someone comes along and offers 54, even though it's like marginally a better deal, you're probably going to sell the lamp to the person with the $54. And I think that that's sort of the position that the board is in here, where they have an offer on the table that's more valuable than what their shares are currently worth, and so they kind of have to pursue it. And whether or not that's in the best interest of like the company or the users or the employees is really, I don't know, not a factor, I think, in that decision.
Besides the point, yes, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, but it's strange too, because like I also don't know in a settlement like this, like who the decision ultimately falls to. Do you know the answer to this one? Does it fall to the board as to what, do they have to approve a settlement, or is this entirely in the discretion of the general counsel? Like how is this handled, or their
You
outside
mean
counsel?
if they go into sort of a renegotiation of the deal?
Yeah, or like a settlement. Like if he says, I will pay you 500 million but not $1 billion, like how does that factor in to like what is in the best financial interest of Twitter in that scenario? Like then you have $500 billion or like 44 billion or 1 billion or zero. Like will you take 500? Like I don't, does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think that there's a couple of different scenarios that could happen. So one is that Twitter and Elon Musk sit down and they, renegotiate the price of the whole deal and come to an agreement. If they proceed with the trial and the judge decides, you know what, I think Elon can walk away, then I think that it would be the judge's decision rather than a negotiation between Elon and Twitter of what the damages would be that he would pay.
Yeah.
I think.
Can you explain something to me about this? So Delaware Chancery Court, in my vast experience as a legal reporter, is something that I have never really spent any time with, I'm embarrassed to admit. How long does a litigation in Delaware Chancery Court where a proposed takeover bid wants out, how long does that take? Is that a 6-week litigation, a 6-month litigation, a 6-year litigation? Is it a 60-year litigation?
It's pretty fast. It's a pretty fast court. So it's a little bit like the Rocket Docket. Like it's a little bit like Eastern District of Virginia. Like they run things quickly.
Yeah, so I'm also a Chancery newbie, but from what I understand, it is very quick. So Twitter is asking for the trial in September. They're going to decide next week whether or not they want to do that date or a different date. And then I think they said it would be a 4-day trial. And the process tends to be pretty quick. I've had a couple lawyers that I've talked to estimate maybe 7 months to a year for all of this to resolve and play out. So I think much, much quicker than, what we would expect from typical litigation. Yeah, also, hello to that pup.
Yeah, that's Gurgi. Gurgi is awesome. Gurgi's love language is licking people.
Me in particular.
Yes. It's pretty cute. So how do you feel about being on the Elon Musk beat involuntarily, Kate Conger?
Well, so Twitter's my normal beat, and
yes, but Elon is not your normal beat.
Elon is not my normal beat.
You look so sad when you say that.
Twitter's never a boring company to cover. I will say that.
Hey Scott, can you keep yourself muted? We've got a lot of background noise coming from you. Thanks.
Yep, I got it. Go ahead. Sorry, Kate.
Oh yeah. So I mean, Twitter's never been a boring company to cover. There's always something going on, and I think that this is on a bigger scale than some of the other dramas that Twitter has faced. But a lot of the details of this sort of remind me of in 2020 when it was Elliott Management coming in and kind of pushing to shake up the company and replace Jack, and so a lot of the logistics of this actually feel quite familiar. It's just, a louder voice driving the conversation.
But it does seem like there's a more substantial question behind this than with Elliott Management. Because with Elliott Management, the question was, is this company producing revenue the way you would expect the company to produce revenue? But Elon Musk's fundamental question doesn't seem to be about revenue. It seems to be about, is the company adequately friendly to or hospitable to precisely the voices that the world of content moderation has been trying to control for the last 3 to 5 years. And there is this big question behind Musk's bid, which is, should we allow all those people that, folks like us have been saying, hey, the platforms need to control this stuff, need to learn how to deal with this, is the right answer throw the doors open and let them all back in? That, Twitter's not really racist enough, and it's not Trumpy enough, and there's not enough harassment, and that really should reorganize it along the lines of, 4chan or 8kun or, and I guess I've been surprised at how completely unthoughtful Elon Musk seems to be on the subject of content moderation. And so my question to you is that an act? Or, like, he's not a dumb person, but he sounds genuinely stupid on this subject. And so my question is, what's he playing at? What's the, like, is he actually offended at the degree of censorship going on these platforms, or on this platform in particular? Or is there a subtext to what he's saying that I'm missing?
That's a good question. I think that, I don't know Elon Musk personally, and so I think it's really hard for me to gauge, is this a joke? Is this a troll? Is this serious? I don't know. He seems like he's coming from a place of conviction on this. And I don't know. There are some things that he said early on about, content moderation that sort of echoed some of the things Twitter was saying about where it wanted to go, right? Like this idea of doing a decentralized approach to moderation, letting people create their own curation of their feeds, have a little bit more user control over the content moderation question. And I think this is something that Twitter has struggled with for a long time. The company has not really liked having to litigate each and every piece of content on the platform, right? They have gotten really tired of that. And I think Jack Dorsey in particular has gotten very tired of, everyone coming to him with every content complaint that they came across on the platform. And so there was a point where I feel like what Elon Musk was saying about, what he wanted to do and what Twitter was saying about what they wanted to do did sort of align. Obviously now that's like shifted a lot, and they're going to fight it out in court. But there was a point where I felt like, okay, I can kind of see where they're overlapping with each other a little bit about this, and where they're going in terms of the approach of like, we don't want to be wielding the ban hammer anymore. We want to pass that duty off to someone else.
Yeah, I think that's pretty. So I wanted to know, how long have you been covering Twitter?
My 4-year anniversary at the New York Times is in 2 weeks, and so it will be 4 years in 2 weeks.
Cool. I mean, so I want to talk. I have been about 7 years doing content moderation and speech platforms. When I started, Twitter was like, I mean, let's just think back to kind of basically like the pre-Trump kind of like it was, and Gamergate and all of this stuff. It was like a hellscape. Like it was regularly called a dumpster fire. I think Mark Zuckerberg famously said that Twitter was a clown car that fell down a gold mine. It was like it is just and simultaneously, so this is a very
talk about the pot calling the kettle black, by the way.
I know.
Yes. And after 2016, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg would have been quite foolish enough to say that.
Well, I mean, the point with Twitter is from like the early days of like 2007, 2008, like the fail whale, this is like, these are like some of the basic, like you couldn't even keep the site up type of thing. That the general kind of like, but this is actually a really important point, Ben, because people's memory is so short. And so like what Zuckerberg said, and I think he said this in like 2011 or 2012, like really resonated at the time. Like Twitter was a dumpster fire. It was like the regular, before that was like regular parlance. I remember laughing because it was the first time I'd like heard someone describe like something as, but like there was Gamergate. It was like serial harassment. You would just get, it was, we had all of these instances of shaming. There was tons of pornography, like there's so much stuff. It was really, really hated. I had about half a dozen friends leave other tech companies in a huge hiring boom that Twitter did in 2014, 2013 to go to Twitter, and then like hated it so much and found it to be such a garbage like fire that they all left within 6 months. Like they had, and then it changed, and it seemed to change when there was a bunch of stuff that happened around trust and safety. And then like as a policy kind of shift. And then also obviously Trump like really started running for president, taking over the platform. And I am just really interested as to if you had to pick just one, why do we like Twitter now? Is it because of better trust and safety? Or is it because of like some type of cash injection on the business side that happened because of Donald Trump? And like, that basically gave them more resources, or I don't know. Like, I mean, like, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know if I buy the idea that Trump was necessarily great for Twitter's business, and especially covering their earnings over the years. It's obviously it's been a while, so I could be wrong about this, but I don't remember them having a big spike in revenue tied to Trump. And if anything, they've always talked about how they've really struggled being such a news heavy platform, attracting advertisers. They've been talking about it a bunch lately with the war in Ukraine and saying, no one wants to run their ad campaign next to a video of a massacre or a bombing. That's just not attractive to advertisers. So I don't know if it was so much of a big Trump boom. And, Twitter has always kind of, like you said, sort of muddled along, and they've made changes and then taken them back and then implemented them again. And, I have made a habit of writing a product driven story at least once a year about Twitter, because I tend to write more about the policy issues and content moderation. And so at least once a year, I try to write a story about like, this is what's going on with the product. These are what the plans are. And now that I've done it for a couple of years, it's kind of funny to look back at those stories, because in 2019, it's like, this is what Twitter's product is going to be. And then the 2020 story is something totally different. And then the 2021 story is like a completely different thing of like, no, this is what Twitter's product is all about now. Whether it's decentralization, it's or almost impossible.
Or it is like both. It is like, I don't keep up with Facebook. I can't keep up with the site's policies anymore. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I gotta say that
I like to do that.
I gotta say that I think Twitter's curation and content moderation tools have become superb, and I see a lot of criticism of my work, which is great. I appreciate that. I see very little abuse anymore, and this show would not exist but for Twitter.
That's kind of true. That's absolutely true. Yeah.
A bunch of people are noting in the chat that they came to it through one of our Twitter feeds, but the truth of the matter is that it was literally organized on Twitter, like from the very beginning. I think it literally started because I tweeted at Kate that we should do a show together. I think Twitter has responded to 2016, and in Twitter's case 2015, because Gamergate is a really important moment, in a way that reflects a real maturity and seriousness that they often don't get credit for. They're constantly rolling out the new abilities to refine what you do and don't see, what what sort of people you do and don't interact with, and how. And I always hear people saying that it's a hostile environment, that it's an unpleasant environment. I'm always amazed at how lovely the Twitter environment is, and how, I mean, I'm pretty thick skinned, but when the war in Ukraine started, I started like really aggressively seeking out Ukrainian voices. I learn more about what's going on in Ukraine from Twitter than I can from any newspaper, including the ones that do the finest reporting like yours. And I just think they don't get enough credit for the degree to which they have allowed people to, find the voices they want and interact with those voices and not voices that they don't want.
Yeah. I mean, so
Yeah.
Scott, I'm dying to also know what Scott thinks. Or what Kate, you go ahead and respond, but then I really, because Scott just hasn't been on Twitter as much, and now has become like obviously a master of the art form,
and also somebody who goes out of his way to attract as hostile a response as he possibly
like
can.
Unbelievable, actually. Yeah. But Kate, I know you can Scott or Kate, whoever wants to do it, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that just the toxicity of the platform has improved a lot in recent years. I always hesitate to say I don't experience a lot of harassment on the platform because I think I'll like send up a bat signal and then it'll happen. But so right now, fingers crossed, I'm not experiencing very much harassment on the platform. So that's great. And I kind of knocked them a little bit before for jumping around from different product to different product, but a lot of the stuff they're doing right now is kind of fun. I like Spaces a lot. I thought that was going to be a product that was just going to be instantly abused, and it's actually been really fun. And I've gotten to have a lot of really cool conversations in those forums, and
Yeah.
and just silly stuff too. I was on one when they first rolled it out with a friend of mine who's a musician, and he was talking about the new music that he's coming out with, and someone in the audience raised their hand and was like, "Oh, I have a theremin. Can I play my theremin for you?" And then this man came up and was like playing theremin, and I don't know, it was just a fun experience. So while I kind of knocked him a little bit for um, having a short attention span about product development, at least they're doing stuff that's interesting and fun to play with, and you know, um, that's sort of unique, I think, in where we're at with all the social media companies becoming teenagers.
So before I let Scott say his piece on this, I just want to say something about Twitter Spaces, which is that when the history of the Ukraine war is written, Twitter Spaces will have a very interesting place in the information section of that.
Yeah.
From the Walter report, just to the degree to which people are able to talk to individual Ukrainians, including in trenches, there is nothing like it. I mean, I suppose Clubhouse would have been like it except that all these people are on Twitter. And so you have, I mean, I talked to a Bucha survivor yesterday in front of a live audience, and that is somebody who, until Twitter Spaces existed, does not tell her story orally in public. And so I think there's, I think there's a lot to admire about Twitter's recent product development. And actually, some of it is really playful, like the co-tweeting thing, which is not important. It doesn't, but it's super interesting and super fun what you can do with it. And I just like it.
Yeah. Scott.
Oh, yeah. So in a weird way, Twitter Spaces is in a way coming full circle, because Twitter began right as like an internet radio company. They were trying to come up with something that would eventually become like podcasting. But like Twitter Spaces, in some sense, where people can just jump on and discuss a news event, right as it's happening, is pretty amazing. I will say one thing, which is that there's no question that Twitter has been tamed. I mean, I joined in 2016, in June 2016, and like it was definitely like you really got to see people from a real cross section of ideologies. In a weird way, even though I have a much bigger account now, I see the same sorts of people. There's a way in which, like it's much tamer. Like there are many more blue checks in my feed, and in a way, it's a little less interesting. On the other hand, I think there's just no way, like, you can compare the male experience with the female experience. I think the female experience on Twitter is completely different.
I mean, I think that that's true of life, and I also think that that's true of like teaching. Like I was like describing some of the things that happened to me as a teacher, and like you would never believe. I mean, we've talked about this. Like, we have very different teaching experiences. Like, But anyways, but yes, I think that's correct.
Yeah, right. And the thing that people say, of course, about the online space, is that since you don't see the person, you feel licensed to insult them or to speak very harshly about them. Now, if you that's like a force multiplier for misogyny. And I just think that that's why I think my experiences may not be the relevant, experience to gauge in terms about the success of the platform.
So I want to say something that to respond to something Kate, but what all of you have kind of said, and just like as kind of the slight empiricist / increasingly theorist around this kind of stuff, is that basically I kind of like, I said for a long time that we were in a norm adjusting period and a norm setting period for like these very, very like low friction communication sites, like that we call social media, but I think are really much broader. And what you just said about like the force multiplier for misogyny, like all of these types of things that it has proven itself to be, it's like, it is life on steroids. It is life like unhinged from any of the frictions of time and like reputation and, cost or, just ephemerality. And so I think that this is like, I love that Kate said that like as they hit their teenage years, because it is actually like, and Ben said like kind of this idea of like, oh, like it's actually a really fun platform. It's kind of like there has slowly, iteratively, painfully developed certain best practices around trust and safety and around these types of things. And what the interesting part about this is, in my kind of estimation, is like we see this with every new type of technology and product. Like we saw this with cars, but there was no Section 230 for cars. So all of the best practices basically got litigated in tort regimes. And like
there was a 230 for cars.
Okay, but
there was an absolute immunity until Ralph Nader changed it. It wasn't a statutory immunity, but there's a direct analog to 230 immunity.
So then why were cars so unsafe for so long and like kill so many people? And I feel like we were like so mad at like it took Ralph Nader, like it took someone like Ralph Nader, like how many years that cars existed and were popularized?
It's the same bullshit. I mean, it's the same bullshit you hear now. Excuse me. People will say the American economy depends on the automobile. There's innovation. We can't let regulation stifle innovation. You can't. This is the symbol of American might. in the post-war world. I mean, it's a very kind of similar set of stories. And then, when Ralph Nader comes along, this is it's like, look, you had enough time. You had a couple of decades there, and it's something that needs to change. But I would just say, and just to make a plug, in a way, this is like the claim of like the theory of law, which is that, like,
Yes.
the way law works is that it normally starts out vague and gets developed over time in experimental ways. And so it's not so that's true for, I think, for all governance, right? Like, only a crazy institution sets out like a master blueprint and code book before they start. What has to happen is you have to.
You know who did that? Is Hitler. Sorry, Mike Godwin's in the chat. Sorry, but he did. I think he wrote it all down beforehand. Sorry, sorry, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
but it's also relevant to the theory of law, because that was, in fact, like the Holocaust and everything else was like one of like the things that moved, right? Like, I mean, that moved. I mean, that is kind of HLA Hart and like all of like that whole debate.
Oh, yeah. Well, so right. So there are many people who have had an aversion to the theory known as legal positivism, because they feel like the Nazi, it gives too much credit to the Nazis, for example, that they had law, and therefore gets people to follow it. But in some sense, that's about law. And here we're just talking about kind of like the way an institution, a private institution, regulates this kind of quasi-public function. And it's good that it was done in the way that it was done, in a kind of, in some sense, experimental way, and got refined over time, because it does seem to be much better than it used to be.
Yeah.
So while we have been sitting here talking, Kate Conger has written a story in the New York Times, and it has nothing to do.
It was before I got here.
It has nothing to do with why she was late to be on the show.
So cool.
So
you want to give us the TLDR of your piece?
Yeah. So no, don't give us the TLDR, because then we won't read it. Give us the substance of what did you report, and what has Elon Musk argued in response to this suit?
Yeah, so Elon Musk has responded to the Twitter lawsuit, which is interesting. He hasn't really said a lot publicly, aside from his tweets, about what he thinks of the case, of what's going on with the acquisition, etc. He's been relatively quiet. So basically what he's saying is sort of a reiteration of the letter that his lawyers filed with the SEC, which says, Twitter's basically stonewalled me on this bots issue. I need to discover whether or not their bot numbers are accurate. And in order to do that, I need months and months of discovery time. I can't rush forward to a trial in September. That's far too soon to figure out one way or another if Twitter has been honest about its bot figures. And so we need to postpone. And he's also still pressing the issue of whether or not Twitter told him about firing some of its executives. They said that they told him. He says that they didn't tell him. I'm sure that will be a quicker discovery issue than whether or not the bot count is accurate. That seems like fairly easy to pull up the email and just 100%. Determine one way or another. So that's another argument that he's sticking with. Yeah, go ahead.
Dumb question on this, on the bot count issue. Mm-hmm. Twitter is either like, what do we know about the language of the contract as to what Twitter is obliged to provide him regarding bots? When I contract to buy a house, there's no language in the contract about, they'll provide me information about how many bots the house has. And absent,
there's like a thing about encumbrances on like, anyways, go on.
But absent such language, I don't get to say, like, actually, I don't have to buy the house because you didn't provide me data on how many bots there are. And so my question is, what in the contract obliges Twitter to give him lots of data about the bots?
I think you got bots in that cage there.
Yes, Gurgi just went into
Gurgi has gone into his crate and is digging a deep hole, and I'm going to mute myself.
Okay, first, Ben, you're totally wrong. If you had, let's instead of bots, let's say ants. If you had ants and you knowingly had ants in your house and you were infested with ants and or termites and they were eating away at the material structure of the house and you did not disclose this to a buyer, there are literally laws in place that this is like absolutely grounds to pull out of a contract before closing. I don't know much about property law, but this is like basically buying companies, like buying a house but bigger and for more money.
Right? No. But hang on a second. There has to be a rule that says that this would be understood as an encumbrance, right?
Yes,
and
there is.
And
in corporate law, there is like absolutely like if the valuation is built on a lie or like not as it appears, then like that is absolutely grounds for failing to close a deal, for failing to like go through a closing.
So in order for this to be a legitimate grounds, I'm just doing some there would have to be an understanding that there are many more bots than Twitter has acknowledged or understood. B, that the valuation of the company is flawed as a result of that. And C, that Twitter knew or should have known this and didn't disclose it.
Absolutely. And it's mostly the hard part is B, because if in fact every single company inflates its DAUs and its MAUs, like if they they're all like their daily and average monthly users, sorry to use acronyms, are all inflated and they're all valued more than they should be, then like actually are they just not, isn't it all like they're all valued exactly where they should be? It just happens to be a lot of money. Like, and we just like there just isn't a great valuation for these types of things, and we've based it on a false thing. But it's all, if it's across the board, then it's kind of like everything costing like instead of $10, $110. Like it's just like if everything is inflated, then it's not actually like an inaccurate valuation. That's like my. So that's my.
Yeah, but I'm hung up on an antecedent point, which Mike Godwin just flagged and articulated in the chat better than I have, which is this is not a situation where like a house inspection, you say, okay, come in and do a house inspection. There's a contingency associated with it. This is a situation where he is retroactively demanding that they prove a negative, and then not allowing, and that this didn't, as far as I know, it didn't come up in the contract discussion, as in this purchase is contingent.
There's a duty to disclose this type of thing. It would be like a material misrepresentation to like basically have knowledge of the fact that like your numbers of users are inflated and materially not disclose that in the deal.
Understood, but the normal way of handling that, if you have a question about it, is to make the purchase contingent on the ability to resolve questions about it by one means or another. And he didn't do that. Instead, what he does is demand after the signing of the contract, subject to no known standard but his own, that Twitter satisfy him on this point. And that seems like, either he kind of made it up in retrospect because he wanted to get out of the thing, or that he's that he's kind of upping, moving the goalposts in an ongoing kind of way. And so I'm perplexed by why none of this came up before the contract was signed in the first place.
Okay, so the stuff I was saying before is like I was confused. I was confused about like whether your questions were about generally about like contracts and corporations, or whether that you were talking about Elon's deal specifically. But yes, and Jacob just brings this up in the other part of this that, again, when I said fascinating, depending on how you squint at it. The other interesting part of this is that they specifically negotiated a contract that gave up the due diligence and allowed for specific performance. And so he laid his own trap, and that's signed and inked and complete and so it's kind of okay, so it strikes me as kind of like a quitclaim deed, which is like a deed where you buy a house and you agree that you're going to buy the house and close on the house and transfer the title of the house without any type of inspection, without any type of insurance as to the quality of the title, right? You do all of that. This is kind of, it almost is like that's what he agreed to. I don't want to be, but it's and so this is there is a part of it's you don't just get to rewrite the rules because you're really sorry that you were you rushed a deal that should have taken a lot longer and should have required due diligence. And so this is anyways, so I don't know, that was an analogy to something that I think is probably only in my brain, but it's Steve, yes, but actually with closings, it's if for closings on quitclaim deeds, they actually frequently happen without inspections. So it's not part of the quitclaim deed, but it's actually kind of ends up being part of the process before closing, at least in New York. Kate Conger, you seem like you have a phone call and are probably very busy right now and have to go. It's totally fine. Thank you for joining us for overtime anyway. Sorry, I made Kate go away because I was getting a weird echo, and then also I felt really bad because we're 6 minutes over. So
and she
was actively on the phone and reporting a story. So yeah.
We should wrap.
I know.
Yeah, we should wrap. Yeah.
Well, guys, Scott, we won't see you because you'll be on vacation in an undisclosed location.
Yes.
Hopefully Delaware. Hopefully you and Elon are going to be hanging on a beach somewhere. Ben and I will be back next week with Eve Gumand in person at playing pétanque at a outdoor bar in Brooklyn. I am very thrilled with this choice of venue. Pétanque is one of my favorite games.
Your Wi-Fi hotspots.
And
don't make Scott feel guilty. Hashtag it's Scott's fault.
That will be 72 hours and
71.
Oh, fuck. No. Yes. Fuck. 71 hours and God, I was so close. 71, apparently not actually. 71 and 53 minutes from now. And until then, Kate, we don't have fun anymore, but we do have the boring company, apparently, which Gurgi is attempting to become a member of inside his own, inside his crate. So yeah, get it? Okay.
Bye.